Hi, TransByDef. This is Christine. Our topic this week is what are some of the unexpected things about transition, about HRT, just about our lives since we've transitioned. So for me, the first thing, the biggest surprise for me was that I no longer identify as a lesbian. In fact, I think in one of my first videos for TransByDef, I was still identifying as a lesbian. At this point, I now identify as pansexual. Now, that's not to say that I've acted on it, but it's just to say that I'm open to a larger and rather unexpectedly number of sexualities. And it wasn't that this was actually new. It was just I had to go back and reconstruct it throughout my entire life. It was not something I was comfortable with before. It wasn't something that I would have explored. And so I never did. I never allowed myself to dwell on it. Just like I never allowed myself to dwell on my gender identity. It was something that needed to be suppressed. That was how I thought of it. And so I couldn't ever accept that there was any other possibilities there. But there is. And there has been for, I think I've acknowledged it, maybe for almost 6 months or a year even. But, yeah, like I said, one of my first videos, I think I said I was still saying I was a lesbian, and so there was definitely a shift, and it was a shift because I opened up, I think. Not because it was something necessarily new. And I've heard a lot of people that have experienced the same thing. In fact, I remember having a conversation very early in my transition with a friend, and yet she told me that she had had quite a reverse, and she really found men pretty attractive, and I think now she pretty much dates exclusively men. But initially she would have said the same thing. She was a lesbian. So the other thing, and I think Jenny mentioned it in hers, but it's true, and it needs to be said. You never know who is going to accept you and who is going to reject you until they do. You also know you never know who's gonna change their mind and come back. Because they do. Sometimes, if you don't burn the bridge completely, they might come back. I'm not saying wait for them. If they're gone, let them go. But if they come back, welcome them back. So that was kind of unexpected. Some of the people that have been really good friends of mine in transition, I wouldn't have expected it at all. But I owe a lot to them. Be ready with contingencies, though, because some of those people that you think are going to accept you, they don't. And it can hurt. It can hurt so bad. I mean, I wouldn't say that my dad has outright rejected me. But it was far from acceptance. It was pretty close to being completely rejected. And yet, my mother and my father have purchased me a house for my kids and I to live in, Um, and they're going to sell it to me here after my divorce finalizes. Um, you know, you never know. I got really lucky. So I've been living in this house I think for a couple of months now, and I've had friends that have helped me, and we've repaired um, broken pipes that were rotted through because the water in the town that I live in is like eating the pipes from the inside out. There are other pipes that were burst because of the cold. Um, Toilets that needed to be replaced. Walls that needed to be ripped out because they were covered with mold. Um, and for what it's worth, the house is awesome. Um, Bought it as a foreclosure, kind of buying it a little bit blind, and took a big risk, a leap of faith, and other than the assessment being really high, it's been good. Took 2 moves over the summer to do this, so in the time that we haven't been talking, 2 moves. Once to temporary, a couple month housing while I completed a purchase on this one, and then into this house where I plan on staying. Um, what else? Um, Missing my estrogen for an extra day. Just one day late taking it. Now I take transdermal, and the way that it works is each of the patches lasts 3.5 days. After 3.5 days, it quickly dissipates to just being nothing left in your system. But for those 3.5 days, it's pretty consistent and pretty stable. So if every 3.5 days, like clockwork, I take my medicine, great. If I miss it for a day, though, just one day, I start to notice almost immediately that I just get moody and temperamental, almost angry, kind of, I don't know, kind of like PMS or something. Um, and that was surprising. Um, Another thing, a lot of the stuff talks about sex drive being really decreased. Yeah, I'm talking about sex drive. Um, Mine is not gone. It's like probably consistent with any cis females. Um, but definitely still there. I think Jenny said hers is kind of out of control, like raging. I don't get that. I don't. In fact, it's definitely decreased, but it's decreased in a way that's actually quite a relief for me. It was something that I was hoping for, and exactly what I got. Um, but I guess I kind of thought it was going to disappear altogether, and it didn't. So, it was a little unexpected. Um, Not an outright surprise. It was more of a hope, and yeah. So, um, what else? Um, my interests. I closed myself off from a lot of things that I would have liked before. Um, and I didn't do them because they weren't things that guys did. Um, so, I picked up beading. I like to do a lot of beading, and making jewelry. So, like, this is a necklace that I made. That's a necklace I made. Um, yeah. What else? I'm taking feminism class right now. And I'm enrolled in a women's studies certificate program. It's just another one of those things I would have probably never done before, but now really wanted to do. Even to the point where I was putting my money in. Now I get free classes because I work at a university, but I still have to pay for the materials and stuff, and that's not cheap. It was probably 2,000 pages worth of books. It's quite a stack for just the semester, just just one semester. And then there's the class time, and then there's out of class time reading those 2,000 pages. We're not reading all of them. We're probably reading, I'm going to guess before we're done, probably about 800 pages. And then there's going to be paper time that I'm going to have to write a paper, as well as prospectus to go for the paper before and everything else. So that I would put this kind of time commitment into something, it's different. It's not a techie, computer geeky thing. In fact, I have no interest. I don't know if I should be saying this, but might as well. I have no interest in pursuing my computer stuff anymore. I had started a master's degree a couple years ago. And, like I said, I get free classes, but I don't want to. But I sure want to take these other classes. Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised by how much more, I don't know, real my life feels most of the time. Oh, I'm constantly surprised that I pass at all. I mean, seriously, I'm 6'4". I'm a very big girl. They don't make girls like me. But here I am. And yet I pass. I mean, I've been stopped at Walmart several times. Wow, you're such a tall woman. you know, I got stopped yesterday. I went to a jazz festival with my kids, and they had a art festival there too, and they were selling art and jewelry and things, and so we went and we did a little shopping. And I stopped to purchase some glass pendants and a bracelet for my daughter. And when I was there, the daughter of the person who was running the booth, stopped me, and she's like, she's a big girl. She's 6'2", and, pretty big girl too. And she's like, "Can I ask, how tall are you?" I'm like, "I'm about 6'4". She's like, "Wow, I don't see many women that are bigger than me." And it's like, yeah. She's like, "I'm not going to ask the other question." I'm like, "What?" "Well, did you play basketball?" Actually, I did. But, yeah, so, that I have these whole conversations with people, and they just accept me. Awesome. Never would have thought it would happen. I would have thought, you know, that I would never be accepted, and that I was going to be pretty much rejected by everybody, that no one would ever be interested in dating me, that, you know, I didn't expect it to go well when I transitioned at all, and yet I had to do it because I had to tell the truth. I couldn't handle lying anymore about it.